German cuisine. I'm sure most of you immediately think of things like bratwurst, schnitzel, pork roast, maybe rotisserie chicken. Well, that's definitely not what your standard German dinner looks like in 2024, because meat consumption in Germany is actually at an all-time low. Hello, servus, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Feli. I'm originally from Munich, Germany, but I've been living here in Cincinnati, Ohio, on and off since 2016. And today I want to talk about a development in Germany that kind of seems counterintuitive to a lot of people at first. Isn't Germany the meat country? The home of sausages and this pile of raw meat that regularly goes viral on the internet? That's met, by the way, and yes, people eat that as a bread spread and sometimes serve it in the shape of a hedgehog for whatever reason. And that country is eating less meat than ever before? Yep. But let's talk about what these numbers mean exactly, what the reasons for the lower meat consumption are, and how this compares to the situation here in the US. Spoiler alert, it's pretty different. In 2022, the meat consumption in Germany was at about 52 kilograms, so about 115 pounds per person for the whole year, which is the lowest it's been in over 30 years since they first started recording these numbers in 1989. So to be fair, historically, there were probably many times when the average meat consumption in Germany was lower than this, after World War I and II, for example. But when we look at the last 3 decades, this is a record low. The numbers for 2023 haven't been published yet, but if we look at the trend, we can clearly see that since about 2018, meat consumption has consistently gone down every year. And the average German actually ate about 9 kilograms, so about 20 pounds less meat in 2022 than they did 10 years prior in 2012. That's a decrease of about 15%. When we look at the different types of meat, it looks like pork is what people cut back on the most, followed by beef and veal, and poultry is the category that had the smallest decrease. But why? What makes Germans suddenly cut back on meat so much? Well, the main factor here seems to be that more and more people in Germany are leaning towards a more plant-based diet. According to this survey by the Forsa Institute from 2023, about 9% of the German population is currently vegetarian, so they don't eat meat or fish. 3% are vegan, meaning they cut all animal-based products out of their diet, and often even out of their lives entirely. And about 41% of Germans refer to themselves as flexitarians. When you do the math, this means that more than half of the population in Germany is actively reducing their meat consumption in one way or another. And this is actually something that I've observed in my personal environment too over the last few years. Growing up, I was always the only vegetarian among my family and friends. Just for explanation, I've never really liked meat since I was a child, so I've been vegetarian for as long as I can remember, simply because meat was always a food that I didn't really like the flavor and texture of. But when I'm in Germany now, suddenly a lot of my friends and family are vegetarian themselves, many are even vegan, or they're part of those 41% that are consciously reducing their meat consumption. Like my parents, for example, who suddenly always have meat substitute products in their fridge and plant-based milk, and when they do cook meat, it's more of a conscious decision. Same goes for my brother. And I'm still surprised whenever I'm at a restaurant with people in Germany and they just say something like, "Oh, the steak looks good, but I don't want to eat meat today, so I'm just gonna get the pasta." According to the official German Nutrition Report 2023, only 1 out of 5 Germans eat meat every single day, so 20%, which has gone down significantly from 34% in 2015. But what makes Germans want to incorporate a more plant-based diet to begin with? According to these surveys, most people say that they're doing it for environmental reasons, like to combat climate change, for ethical reasons, to reduce animal cruelty, and for health reasons. In addition to all of that, another factor that may have played a role in the decrease of meat consumption in Germany is inflation. If we look at the graphic again, we saw a bigger decline for 2022 than we did for previous years. And if we look at inflation rates, the meat prices actually went up by 15% from 2021 to 22, which is higher than the average price increase of goods for that time period. So inflation could have definitely been a contributor contributing factor here. Another thing that has drastically changed since I moved away from Germany is the selection of plant-based products, such as meat substitutes, milk alternatives, and other plant-based dairy products. This is what the selection at a regular German grocery store looks like, and those stores are tiny compared to American grocery stores, which means that the plant-based products actually take up a lot of space. There's honestly not a lot of things that you can't get a vegan version of nowadays, and a lot of the products are really good apparently. I mean, I can't really judge the meat substitute products because for me, the more it actually tastes like meat, the less I like it, so I don't even usually try those products. But according to the Forza survey, 72% of Germans say that the selection of plant-based products at German grocery stores is big enough or just right, and according to the nutrition report, one of the main reasons for purchasing these products, aside from environmental and ethical reasons, is because it tastes good, and out of curiosity. 10% of Germans even eat vegan and vegetarian alternatives every single day, which is doable for many because while meat prices have gone up over the last few years, meat alternatives have actually become cheaper on the German market and are now either just a little bit more expensive than their traditional counterparts or even cost the exact same. Lidl, for example, one of the biggest German discounter stores, made huge headlines last fall when they announced that they were gonna lower the prices of their vegan products to be comparable to their animal-based equivalents, and other stores followed their lead. Now, of course, you don't necessarily need these types of products to reduce your meat consumption or become vegan, but it definitely makes it easier for a lot of people because it allows them to make these changes without having to miss out on the taste altogether. My parents, for example, also like that they can just make the same recipes as before, but replace ingredients like ground beef with vegan ground meat to get that same texture. So it's not surprising that the meat substitute market in Germany has been exploding over the last few years. From 2019 to 2022, production went up by over 70%. One of the biggest German brands in this field is Rügenwalder Mühle, technically a long-established meat producer in Germany. But in 2014, they also started offering vegan alternatives to their products, and in the last couple of years, they've actually made more money with their vegan selection than with their traditional meat products. They've now even started to reduce their meat selection in order to focus even more on their almost 50 different vegan and vegetarian products. This trend has also entered the restaurant scene in Germany. Now, I talked about this more in detail in this video from 2 years ago about being a vegetarian in the US compared to Germany, but I never really struggled growing up in Munich. Most restaurants have always had vegetarian dishes as part of their regular menu, and even traditional Bavarian cuisine has always had vegetarian classics. Not usually vegan, but vegetarian for sure. And nowadays, even places like traditional Bavarian beer gardens or the Munich Oktoberfest that is famous for serving tons of meat every single year has a huge selection of vegan dishes. Most of the tents at Oktoberfest have added a dedicated vegan menu in the last couple of years, and there's even a vegan version of Weißwurst, a Bavarian classic that has become a huge trend. Meanwhile, the situation in the US is a little different, especially here in the Midwest. I mean, I've definitely noticed that the selection of plant-based options at our regular Kroger, so our grocery store here, has become bigger over time. This was the plant-based section 2 years ago, and this is even a Kroger marketplace, meaning that it's bigger than their regular stores and also has other departments besides just groceries, kind of like a Walmart. So for the size of the store, this was a pretty small section. Now, 2 years later, it has definitely become bigger, and the same goes for the selection of plant-based food in the frozen section and the milk alternatives. There's even a vegan cream cheese now. Prices, however, seem to have stayed about the same or even gone up for some products, and apparently that's been the case for meat substitutes in the entire US, and they're expected to go up even more. When we look at the bigger picture here, it almost seems like the US is moving in the opposite direction as Germany when it comes to the plant-based market. Let's look at McDonald's, for example. McDonald's, well, that's really the last place you should look for plant-based food. You might think so, but in Germany, even McDonald's has a variety of vegetarian and vegan products on their menu, beyond just the fries, which is one of the go-to fast foods for a lot of vegans, but even those actually aren't vegan in the US. Last time I had McDonald's in Germany, which I think was in 2022, I remember that they had a full-on vegan burger, the Vegan TS, and there were also vegetarian or vegan wraps. I remember that I had one of those and it was really good. Since then, their plant-based menu has actually changed a bit, and some people aren't too happy about it, but at least they do still have veggie options. They currently have the McPlant burger with a Beyond Meat patty, vegan nuggets, vegan fries, and hey, even curly fries, salads, these chili cheese snackers, which aren't vegan but at least vegetarian, and every now and then they even have things like a vegan McFlurry. The McPlant burger did also make it to selected McDonald's locations in the US back in 2022, but after a 6-month testing phase, instead of rolling it out nationwide, they actually took it off the menu again due to low demand. And during the pandemic, McDonald's even removed the salads from their menu here in the US, and they never returned. They used to be my go-to road trip food for when I wanted something healthy every now and then. Another example that I stumbled across is Kentucky Fried Chicken. Turns out that in Germany, they have a giant vegan selection on their menu. In the US, nothing. Apparently, they did a test run with Beyond Meat a few years ago, but yet again, it didn't pass the test and was eventually taken off the menu again. Even at pizza chains in Germany, you'll often find a whole vegan menu, like here at Domino's, which is technically an American chain, or even Pizza Hut. I've never seen that at their US locations though. Maybe they offer it in other parts of the country, but around here, it doesn't seem to be standard. I have seen it at a couple local pizza places though. Now, Burger King is one of the only big fast food chains in the US that does offer a vegan option with the Impossible Whopper. Meanwhile, Burger King Germany actually offers a plant-based option for all of their burgers, even though they work with a different brand in Germany since Impossible isn't yet available in the EU. But here, even Burger King said in November that their vegan menu isn't, quote, a big part of their current focus, and they're unlikely to expand such offerings in the US in the near term. According to Joshua Kobza, the CEO of Burger King's parent company, plant-based options are selling better internationally, particularly in Western Europe, but there's no big change in the trends. And even Beyond Meat, which together with Impossible Food is one of the biggest players in the American plant-based market, is struggling. They actually just published their 2023 financial report, and compared to the previous year, their sales have dropped by 18%. It's interesting to see how different the market is developing here compared to Germany. In 2022, Americans consumed about 227 pounds of meat per person. That's about 103 kilograms. Now, with these types of numbers, it's always kind of hard to know how comparable they are to statistics from other countries. The numbers for Germany only show human consumption, for example, while these US numbers seem to also include things like pet food. And there are different numbers floating around out there, so it's hard to know which one is the right one. But at the end of the day, all of them are significantly higher than the meat consumption in Germany. So we can for sure say that on average, Americans eat significantly more meat than Germans do, about twice as much. And the US even ranks among the countries with the highest per capita meat consumption in the world. Again, it depends on which list you look at, but the US always shows up as one of the top countries, like here right behind Hong Kong, or on this list, they're tied with Portugal. As someone living in the US, I'm not surprised by this at all. I feel like meat is almost always a part of savory meals here. Even for breakfast, it's super common here to have different types of sausage, bacon, or even steak, while in Germany, meat usually isn't part of a typical breakfast. Some people might have something like cold cuts on their bread in the morning, but that's about it. So if you ever travel to Germany, don't be surprised if the breakfast buffet at your hotel doesn't have any meat options aside from the occasional cold cuts. Which, by the way, I've been meaning to make a video about what Germans eat for breakfast. Is that something you'd be interested in? Let me know in the comments. When we look at US meat consumption over time, I couldn't really find a chart that went beyond the year 2020, but I did find these two statistics that show the consumption of beef and pork and the consumption of poultry, so broiler, turkey, and other chicken up until 2023. And we can see that the consumption of red meat actually went down from 22 to 23, which is a trend that's expected to continue this year, but poultry consumption has been going up every year. Which, if you do the math, means that overall meat consumption in the US has stayed about the same over the last couple of years, but it's expected that we'll see an increase of about 10 pounds per person over the next 10 years. So unlike in Germany, we're not seeing a downward trend here. According to the latest survey conducted by Gallup, the amount of vegetarian and vegans in the US is going down as well. In 2023, 4% of Americans said that they were vegetarian and only 1% were vegan, compared to 5% and 3% in 2018. Even compared to 2012, this is a drop. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any surveys about how many Americans eat meat every single day to compare that to the survey from Germany, where it was about 20%. But based on these overall numbers and personal observation, I would definitely assume that there are more people here that eat meat every day. This is not a statistic, just personal observation, but from what I see here in the Midwest, eating meat on a daily basis, or for some people even every single meal, is pretty normal. I sometimes almost get the feeling that meals aren't really considered complete if they don't contain any kind of meat. I always notice this when I look at restaurant menus here and see that even the salads each come with a different type of meat or fish, or that dishes that are technically vegetarian, like pasta or something, often have an option to add chicken or other types of meat for an upcharge. And the waiters then specifically ask you whether you'd like to add any protein to the dish. I found that labeling of meats as protein pretty interesting when I first came here, by the way. I talked about that a little bit more in depth in my vegetarianism video. I'm also sometimes caught off guard when there are dishes that I would have expected to be vegetarian, like Brussels sprouts or green beans or potato salad, but then they have bacon crumbs in it. It even happened to me that I ordered a side dish at a restaurant and the menu didn't mention anything about meat, but then when it came, it had bacon crumbs on top. Okay, this was a Cracker Barrel, so maybe not too surprising, but it's kind of a recurring theme. Now, of course, it's not like you can't find anything vegetarian here, and of course, many restaurants here do have salads without meat. I mean, I've lived here for over 7 years now, and I do get by, but I do sometimes feel like I struggle more as a vegetarian here in the Midwest in 2024 than I ever did growing up in Germany. That's also something that I talked about more in the other video, so check that out if you want to hear more. This is just my personal experience, though. I know that other vegetarians from Germany say that it's the exact opposite for them, and especially in regions like the East Coast or West Coast of the US, things certainly look completely different than they do in this part of the country. But what I'm trying to say is that in my experience, meat is pretty omnipresent here, so the statistics we've looked at are absolutely in line with my personal observations too. And by the way, now that McDonald's doesn't have salads here anymore, I want to give a big shout out to Taco Bell for becoming my fast food refuge. I know that many people don't like Taco Bell, but they're kind of everywhere in the US and actually have a pretty big selection of vegetarian dishes on their menu. And their Black Bean Crunch-Up Supreme or the Veggie Power Bowl have saved my ass several times during road trips or even at airports. And I think they're even bringing out a full-on vegan Crunchwrap soon. So overall, what we're seeing in Germany is a conscious reduction of meat consumption with a thriving market for plant-based products that are becoming cheaper and more readily available, whereas in the US, plant-based companies are actually struggling and raising their prices, while meat consumption is expected to rise over the next few years. But how come that consumer preferences, demands, and eating habits of two wealthy Western countries are so vastly different? At first sight, it seems like maybe it just goes back to a more prominent consciousness for the environment and for animals. And I'm sure that plays a big role, but I think this might also have to do with the country's different historical identities. Now, this is me just sharing my thoughts and guesses. I don't know the true answer to this question, but I do know that historically, meat has played a pretty different role in the US compared to Germany. A lot of American settlers came from European countries where land was scarce and heavily regulated by royalty. Most of the common people didn't have access to meat all the time. So once they came to the New World, it seemed like there was unlimited land available for everyone. Of course, it technically belonged to Native Americans, but that's how they viewed it at the time. So suddenly, owning land and having livestock was possible for pretty much everyone, and Americans started to get used to meat being something that was always available. And it pretty much stayed like that to this day. I read that during World War I, President Wilson apparently asked Americans to implement at least one meatless day a week and one meatless meal a day in order to avoid the need for food rationing during the war. So I guess eating meat for pretty much every single meal was common in the US even 100 years ago. Meanwhile, throughout German history, meat consumption wasn't only restricted due to the rules of land ownership and the feudal system, but during the 20th century, the country was also hit by 2 world wars, which did lead to a lot of hunger. My grandparents' generation, for example, grew up during a time when even bread and potatoes were valued goods, and eating meat was very special and hard to afford for many people. As far as I know, that's never really been the case in the US. There's also the German tradition of of the Sunday roast, Sonntagsbraten, which originally goes back to Christian customs several centuries ago apparently. But even in the 20th century, a lot of Germans only had meat once a week for the celebratory Sunday roast. So I think that at the end of the day, Germans and Americans may have simply inherited a different mindset towards meat and the role it plays in their everyday life. But what do you guys think of this topic? What's your experience with meat and plant-based alternatives in the US and in Germany? I would love to hear your opinions and experiences in the comments below. Just please make sure to stay respectful with each other, because I know that for some people this can be kind of an emotional and controversial topic. One of the main reasons why people try to reduce their meat consumption is protecting the environment. And if that's something you care about too, there's an amazing project that I came across called Planet Wild that was founded in Berlin. They're a global community who team up with conservation projects all over the world to give back to nature. Every month, they go on a mission to bring back endangered species, clean up our oceans, or restore forests. And what I love about this is that they document everything on their YouTube channel. I would definitely recommend checking out their videos. They're not just cool because of what they do, but they're also absolutely beautiful to watch. And you can be part of these projects by becoming a community member and actually vote on which projects they should support next. In their most recent mission, they restored an ancient forest in the Scotland Highlands. Check out their video to find out why they actually had to kill some trees first before they could properly redo the forest. It's super fascinating. Or last month, they protected turtles on the Cape Verde Islands in Africa, and they did so with the help of a dog squad. I think it's so cool what they do on their missions, because keeping nature and the environment healthy is so important, and unfortunately, humans have done a lot of damage over the last 100 years. So many animal species are endangered or have already gone extinct. We've erased so many forests all over the world, so I love that there are people out there who try to undo some of the damage and give back to the environment. And the best thing is that you can become a member with as little as $6 a month, which is literally just one Starbucks coffee, less than your monthly Netflix subscription, and you don't have to go out there yourself and get your hands dirty. You can just lean back and watch how your impact grows month by month. They even have an app where you can vote on the projects, see detailed reports and blog posts, and connect with like-minded people from the community. I would absolutely love to see you guys join the Planet Wild community too, which is why I've decided that the first 200 of you to join will get their first month as a gift from me. All you have to do is put in my referral code FELI02 when you sign up. The link is down below, or you can also just scan the QR code. So the first month will be free for you, but you'll still be a supporting member of Planet Wild. So let's help make this planet livable for future generations together. If you found this video interesting, make sure to subscribe to support this channel and hit the thumbs up button for the algorithm. You can also send a super thanks underneath this video or send me a coffee on Ko-fi.com. This is where you can find me outside of YouTube for more content on cultural differences and my life here in the US. And with that, thank you all so much for your support, and I hope I'll see you next time. Tschüss!